Hello everybody! Happy December, happy final reading vlog of the year, happy holiday season, and happy my birth month, which is the most important thing happening this month. December here has started off gloomy, so I decided to take the month to read the books, A, that I physically own, aside from a few of them, and to read what I want. This is me reading what I want this month. So I have started off my month with The Quick by Owen. I'm always on the lookout for very, very good standalone vampire stories, and this one was recommended by the Vampire Reviews channel, Maven of the Eventide. She read this as part of her book club that she hosts every month, and it is a Victorian novel about this guy named James who disappears, and his sister is looking for him in this high society club sort of scene, and I'm very interested in it so far. I'm only 100 pages into it, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm actually taking the time and reading all of the prose. I tend to skim a lot if the book doesn't interest me, and I mostly just read dialogue. But this, I'm able to just get deep into the overly descriptive prose, and a lot of people don't like that, but I find myself heavily engaged by it so far. So I'm looking forward to this book hopefully being one of my favorites of the year. The only other book I plan to read this year is a vampire retelling of A Christmas Carol. Since I read the original story last year, I plan to read that retelling for this Christmas. So that's it for now. Let's see what I get read so far. I'm very excited for this month, more so than last month. That's it for now. Hey, I look like this because I just finished shoveling my driveway, but now I have to get dolled up to prepare to film my favorite books of the year video. So while doing that, I thought I would talk about my progress with The Quick by Owen because I'm almost finished it. I found myself more heavily engaged with the book at the beginning because it follows a brother and sister duo. It is a dual perspective, and the brother James moves to the city on his own after growing up in a really big estate, and he left his sister Charlotte behind. And I was much more engaged with the James part as he's trying to make his way as a writer in the city. Him and his storyline with Christopher were really, really interesting to me, and I was actually getting pretty excited about it. But then the thing happened. If you've read the book, you will know that. And then it switches to Charlotte's perspective as she is struggling to find her brother, and she finds herself in this group that hunts the things. I don't know why I'm being so coy about it. It's vampires. They're vampires. James was attacked and turned into a vampire, and now Charlotte is in a gang of like vampire, not really hunters, but more of like protectors of humans who have been attacked or hunted by vampires. And I just found myself less interested in that storyline because I was more engaged with what James is doing as he's turning into a vampire and dealing with the secret society that the vampires want him to be in. And I just found that Charlotte and her gang of vampire hunters or protectors or whatever was just less engaging. So as the story goes on, I am dwindling in interest, and I'm very disappointed by that. This was a highly anticipated read, and I thought it was going to make it to this video to my favorites of the year, but it didn't. Oh well. So now I have to clean up my filming area, set up my tripod, get some water in me, and get ready to film. Yay! That video will be coming out before this one, obviously. So I need to figure out what I'm going to read next. So that's my update for now. Hello there. It is a slightly different corner of my room. How interesting. Yes. I realized that I forgot to tell you my final thoughts about The Quick by Lauren Owen. I was originally going to set up this clip to talk about the new books that I'm reading, and I totally forgot to close this one out. So I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. I really liked the beginning with James and Christopher and their adventures growing up in the city before being attacked by vampires, and I was less interested about Charlotte's perspective and her joining the troop of vampire. They deal with vampires? I don't know what they're called. Anyway, I guess, I couldn't be too surprised because this book is named after the living, the Quick, and not named after the vampires or their fancy club, so I guess I should have expected more of the human perspective in this given the title. It was beautifully written. It is wonderful, gothic, more Dickensian in description, and I was never bored by it. I never found myself skimming it. I was just a little bit bored with the characters that we were following instead of the more interesting vampires, of course. But I would recommend this. It is a very good standalone vampire book, and I love standalone vampire books. The next book that I've already read and finished is called Bunny Tales by Izabella St. James. This is the third story that I have read so far about a former Playboy bunny who lived in the Playboy Mansion and was one of Hugh Hefner's girlfriends. This one is pretty close to Holly Madison's perspective, except it shows a different perspective and how Holly appeared to be acting with the rest of the girlfriends. So it was an interesting all-around perspective, and it was just as damning to Hef as Holly's was, so I believe those two's perspective over Kendra's, who just seemed to be ass-kissing. But Izabella St. James seems to be a very interesting person. She is Polish Canadian and had a very interesting life. She got her law degree before she moved into the mansion officially, and she's a very interesting and intelligent person, and she had a wonderful perspective about her sexuality and her life in the mansion. She considered it more of like a fun part of her life, which is a good perspective to have. And her details were just as interesting as Holly's details about life in the mansion and how she felt being in a relationship with a man 3 times her age. So that was a very interesting book, but I only give that one 4 stars. And my current update, I've decided to finish the year by reading the 3rd book in the ACOTAR series, the Sarah J. Maas Fairy series. I'm reading A Court of Wings and Ruin. So many adjectives, so many words in those titles. Anyway, I'm just listening to it on audiobook. It's 25 hours. We're gonna get through it very, very quickly. And my next story after that I plan to read is a vampire version of The Christmas Carol. So I'm really looking forward to that. I read A Christmas Carol last year for the holiday season, and I wanted to read the vampire retelling this year to be a more exciting, fun, and spooky twist. So that's my update for now. Hello. So I'm adding this clip in a few days later because it has taken me a few days to figure out what to say about the subject. On December 12th, we found out that Anne Rice had passed away. I sort of saw her death as impending over the years. She was a bit older. She was, I believe, 80 at the time of her death. So it wasn't that shocking. However, I didn't realize that I would feel so emotionally impacted by her death. I have been an Anne Rice fan since I was 14 years old. I remember picking out the Vampire Lestat out of my mom's collection of books because I didn't know you were supposed to read Interview first, so I read the Vampire Lestat first and totally fell in love with the character, and then found out that Interview with the Vampire was actually first. And I started them in the 9th grade when I was about 14 years old. I remember being in my civics or career class. If you are Canadian, you know what that is. And reading the books in class. I always brought them to class with me. I can remember that. I remember reading Pandora in my French class when everybody else was gone for a buyout, which was an event that you paid money to go leave. So they all went to a hockey game. And I stayed in class and read Pandora as the period went on. I am 25 now, recently 25, and Anne Rice has been my favorite author. The Vampire Chronicles has been my favorite series for 11 years. I'm now older than Louis was at the time of his death. That's very frightening to me. I have seen a lot of tweets and posts and messages about Anne Rice's death, and one of them said that they never expected to have to deal with Anne Rice's death because she seemed immortal. And that makes perfect sense. She seemed perfectly immortal, just like her vampire characters. I'm pretty sad just at the world right now. World bad, world very bad again. So I think her death is just sort of a pile on top of things that have already made me sad and scared. But the thing is, she wrote Interview and a lot of her other books entirely with the power of her grief. So in mourning her death, she has a lot of her own writing that deals with the process of grief. And I've been reading a lot of her quotes and a lot of her passages, and it's just been very beautiful, the way she thinks about grief. She had a lot of grief in her life. So it's comforting to me to know that, you know, when you're dead, it's not really over, because she has left such a big legacy behind. And I am not trying to deny how a lot of her stuff was in bad taste or even problematic. I would never excuse any of the bad things that she has done, and I'm not trying to dismiss that. I'm not trying to make her seem like the greatest thing of all time. She was just important to me. Like, I have a whole shelf of her. Like, I have place things, like coasters of her signature that I'm never going to give away. These are mine. Thank you to my partner's mother for these. So I just wanted to share my thoughts about her death and to say thank you, Anne, for inspiring me to write, for making me love vampires even more than Buffy ever could. Thank you for being brave and writing about grief, and thank you for making your vampires the protagonist, the antagonist, the powerful, the downtrodden, the good, the bad, the morally gray. Thank you for making vampires human. Thank you. Mostly filming an update right now because I've dressed up a little bit, so I thought that that would look nice on camera. So I am now 30% through A Court of Wings in Ruin, and wow, is it the worst one so far. Everything is soulmate talk, and I don't like the soulmate trope because it just takes away actual development, actual communication, and actual conflict in a story. Because when you're only brought together by fate and destiny and really good sex, what else is there? So I don't like this trope. I thought there was going to be more development of Reese and Feyre's relationship, but there isn't. And also, now everybody's mated, everyone's paired off. All of Feyre's sisters have a little Fey mate that they get to have now. And it's just so contrived, and it's just so weak. It's very weak writing. So I don't understand why people are so gung-ho about this series, other than the fact that maybe they think the sex scenes are good, and they're not very good at all. Thankfully, it's just an audiobook, and I'm not wasting my time left that I have eyes on this earth scanning the words. I just get to hear them in my damn ears. But the reason I am dressed up today is I am going to be meeting my friends to exchange Christmas gifts. I actually do have a bookish related thing to talk about with that. I got my friend Sarah a book. It is called, I believe, These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, and it's like a Shanghai 1920s Romeo and Juliet retelling. She seems very interested in it, so I'm glad that I got that for her. And the rest of the gifts aren't book related at all, so that's my update for now. Making my way through the ACOTAR series, finishing the year off so I don't have to deal with that anymore. Stay tuned for my next clip. Hello, I'm on the floor for this update. So I am 67% of the way through A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. I have nothing else to report other than the fact that the LGBT rep in it is awful garbage, and I might need to think about that for longer before I can rant at it. It's really bad. The plot is going nowhere, I'm incredibly bored, and I don't care about this war. And I am also 80% of the way through A Vampire Christmas Carol by Sarah Gray. This story is essentially A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, except the context has been switched. Vampires exist in the world, Ebenezer has a closer relationship with his ex-fiancée Belle, and there is a vampire couple that lives in his cellar, and he doesn't know that they're vampires, but they're actually the king and queen vampires of the area, and I like them. But the story obviously does not have the same impact as the original. The lesson that Ebenezer is learning about being nice and charitable with all his money given the holiday season, and not pushing away the people that he cares about. The context is now that vampires have made him selfish, that vampires for his entire life have been pushing his family away, killing family members, making him greedy, and making him isolated. So it's not his fault. How do you screw up A Christmas Carol like that when every choice Scrooge ever made was his own fault? Also, they have him become this prophesized vampire slayer or something, and he was fed vampire blood as a baby by his wet nurse who ends up being that queen of the vampires lady. There's a lot of very dumb crap in here, and I'm not really liking how they incorporated vampires into A Christmas Carol. I think it could work since it is a ghost story, sort of a gothic Christmas thing. They could have had Scrooge be the vampire metaphor itself because of his greed and leeching off of the poor and ignoring the poor. That is more vampiric than the vampires in this book. Also, the amount of women who were killed, it's most of them. The only female characters who basically didn't get killed by vampires or bled to death during childbirth are Belle and the Vampire Queen. So that sucks. One thing I do have to say about the vampire couple, even though they're supposed to be like evil vampires or whatever, they seem to have a very adorable and loving marriage. They are incredibly affectionate with each other, and they're evil for evil's sake, so they'll just walk around cackling and then they'll just start like kissing each other's necks and fingers and making out in public. It's probably meant to be anti-Victorian romance sentiment and being overly affectionate, but I think it's very cute. It gives off the teeny tiniest Gomez and Morticia vibes with how affectionate they are and ignoring everybody else's reactions. It's actually pretty cute. So that's the update I have for that book. It's probably going to be the same review at the end of the book. I wasn't expecting this to be the greatest retelling of all time, but I thought it was very interesting how they tried to incorporate vampires into A Christmas Carol. It ultimately did not work out for me, but it's cool to see that idea put out. So that's my update for now. I think that may be all I read for the holidays, but we will see if something does in fact sneak under the wire or I get a book for Christmas. So that's it for now. Happy holidays! Whee! Basically doing my final wrap up right now because holidays happen. You know, the liminal space in between Christmas and New Year's is a thing where you don't want to do anything. Plus, I'll have to edit this. So it's not even Christmas Eve yet, but I'm wrapping up now because I'm done. So I'm going to do my final wrap up of A Court of Wings and Ruin really, really quickly. 1 star. Wow. Really, really bad. That rep for bisexual characters was awful. I might have to do my own little miniature discussion of it because I feel sick. Honestly, that is not how you frame your queer characters. In a world of fantasy where everybody's mated for life, you're gonna do that to your queer characters. You're gonna make them slutty. You're gonna make them force themselves to sleep with people to avoid some other man. What in the garbage hell did I have to listen to? That was awful! So, my final wrap up for the month. I only read 4 books. One was an audiobook. I listened to it for a really long time. It was really, really bad. So, first book I read, The Quick by Lauren Owen, which I gave 3.75 stars. I did like it, but I was a bit disappointed with the characters that we were following rather than one of the storylines that I was more interested in. The second book I read was Bunny Tales by Izabella St. James, which was another tell-all about living in the Playboy Mansion, and I give that one 4 stars because I appreciated the different perspective than the 2 women who wrote their stories who were on The Girls Next Door, which was an E! Network reality show. The third book I read was A Vampire Christmas Carol by Sarah Gray, which, while a fun and interesting idea, was a very, very weak execution, and it didn't really match with the original themes of the story. And the final book that I read was A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas, which I am giving 1 star. Ew. Hi everybody, quick clip, Merry Christmas. I just wanted to say that I did end up getting one book-related gift, and it is the best gift that I could have ever imagined. It is something that I have been wishing for since 2018. I put it on my list every year, so I'm so excited to show it. So this is Romancing the Vampire from Past to Present by David J. Scal, and it is not only one of those pop culture-y sort of coffee table style books that talks about the origins of vampires from history and then through media, but it is chock full of different vampire goodies. So I'm going to show a few pages and a few goodies just to show what the rest of the book is like. When I got this, I started tearing up because this is just so special to me. My mom had to get it off of eBay, so the box is a bit dingy, but it contains all of the original inserts, so I'm so happy. So here's the book. This is my favorite page, obviously. I'm just so amazed. I don't know where I'm gonna put everything. I'm just so excited. Oh my god. So that was it. That was my year of 2021. If you watched any of these reading vlogs, thank you so, so much. I feel like it was good that I made these reading vlogs for this year because this year just flew by. I barely remember it, and that's very frightening to me. Time flies when you're not having fun as well, I've learned this year. So that is it. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more. Hopefully I will be making more videos in the new year. We will see how things go. Thank you so, so much for watching. I appreciate everybody's likes, comments, subscriptions, even if you don't. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Happy holidays, everybody. Bye.